Hello everyone, welcome to round 9 of the World Championship. Rich Hagan, Zach Hill with you. You are about to watch Shahar Shenhar against Yuuya Watanabe. Why don't we meet the players?
Shahar Shenhar, Israel, 53 pro points last season, playing blue-white-red in standard and playing blue-white-red control in modern.
渡辺裕也です。日本から来ました。去年のワールドチャンピオンシップ優勝して招待されました。今回使うデッキは青白赤のコントロールデッキをスタンダードとモダン両方で使います。頑張ります。
He will do his best, and his best is very, very good indeed. We are away. It is plains against 2 islands, and that looks to me like a coral merfolk.
That is a coral merfolk. I gotta love seeing a literal coral merfolk on the battlefield, as I am way into. I've played many coral merfolks with downside, as Crosstown Courier is capable of evincing.
Indeed. Players just having a quick look through the remainder of cards elsewhere, and they're just having a little, oh yeah, okay, you've got that, fine. So Yuuya Watanabe has begun with the plains. Looks like he's just drawn into Congregate. Like, I know that Kai Buddha thinks Congregate has been unplayable since 1997. Here's someone playing in 2013 who slightly disagrees on this particular M14 occasion. And Shahar Shenhar laying a 3rd island here.
And both these players look like they're curving out quite well. We see Trained Condor threatening Coral Merfolk coming over in the air. Merfolk, of course, showing just how valuable having a 2-drop is. The Sentinel now getting in the Sentinel Sliver, and I would suspect either a Master of Diversion to come down or an Angelic Wall.
It is Angelic Wall, so that's 0-4. It flies and it is Defender. And as we know, because that Congregate is there, Yuuya is going to be a long, long way away from losing to tempo from Shahar with the Coral Merfolk and Trained Condor, and now the Warden of Evos Isle, not just a 2-fly, but makes things cheaper for him as well. Watanabe will send in his Vigilant Sliver, and down comes the Accursed Spirit. That intimidates for 4 mana.
Yeah, and Accursed Spirit, really, really powerful right here, because it's going to put a clock on Shahar, and with Wall gumming up the board, even the Flyers, he doesn't mind taking a couple of damage a turn, because all he's going to do is just set up a huge Congregate that is going to do a lot of the racing in the air for him.
Yeah, right now Congregate would be 12. As we, and of course the possibility of more creatures joining the battlefield, because this is not particularly a color combination on either side that is going to wipe the board completely, although obviously there is black on Watanabe's side right now.
So Watanabe trying to figure out if he wants to walk into Nephilia Sea Kite. It's a common, he knows about it. Of course, he's going to look at the list eventually to see if he has it. Shahar looking at his list in turn to figure out, okay, what's likely to go on if he boldly attacks into my 2-3. So kind of a guessing game happening right now, and then Divine Favor in Watanabe's hand, kind of tempting him if he wants to commit it to the Sentinel Sliver and allow it to both attack and defend very, very powerfully.
So Watanabe gains 3 life as a result of the Divine Favor. Of course, he gets to send it in, as you say, as an attacker and a defender because of Vigilance. And Shahar will fall to 10. And then there is the Master coming down. The diversion, look over there. And for Shahar, he has Time Ebb, which is fine, but a Show of Valor, which is not, because currently he is on mono blue, all of the islands, all of the time. That Show of Valor might as well not be there. Time Ebb says, go away, let's put that on top of the library. So that is a straight trade as well as a tempo play. Angelic Wall gets in the way, so Yuuya Watanabe in pretty decent shape here early, although Shahar is doing fine as well. We see another planes come down for Watanabe. He will send. There's going to be tap action. Accursed Spirit piles in, and Shahar Shenhar well into single figures now. Watanabe runs out another creature as he found from the top of the deck thanks to the Time Ebb. And Shahar, 4 creatures there, now 8 on board. Remember that Congregate that Watanabe has, and he has the mana for, currently worth a mere 16 life.
Right, and at instant speed, what he can do is wait around a little bit for Shahar to commit more attackers to the battlefield, and it's a pretty huge attack step, because Shahar, in his mind, can attack Watanabe down to 1, but with 1 not being lethal, he knows he's going to have to leave some guys back, so he's going to try to figure out how he can stay alive through that Master of Diversions. Of course, what he's not necessarily aware of of is the 16 life that Yuuya is about to add to his side.
Yeah, the thing with the Master of Diversion, that essentially means Shahar is down to 2 attackers maximum because he has to hold 1 back that can still block after one's been tapped. And that means just 2 flyers going in. There's an angelic wall to get in the way of one of them, and that's just letting 1 creature through. So although he has 4 potential attackers, actually he's not going to do a lot, and in fact he just passes, having found at least a plains to now mean that his Show of Valor is live. End of turn. Watanabe says, that's plenty of life, thank you. 16 life will do. I'll go to 25 and lead 25-5. And this game is all about me trying to race you from 25-5 up. Watanabe draws. He sends the Accursed Spirit. Shahar will go down to 2 because it is Intimidate, and Shahar will draw. And unless he has drawn something... Did he draw Disperse?
He drew Disperse. So normally you're pretty happy if you're able to 2-for-1 your opponent with Time Ab, have a Disperse. But, I mean, that life swing means that this tempo matchup is just so hard to go in Shahar's favor. And Disperse is going to do nothing but really delay the inevitable.
Which purse?
Disperse.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Rich.
European chat room will be pleased to hear you say that.
So, I mean, yeah, Yuuya immediately blocks with the wall.
Yeah,
Shahar leverages that, yeah, but, I mean, ultimately that is not really what this game of Magic is all about right now.
It's probably about Shahar being at 2 with an Intimidate guy on the other side of the table.
Has something to do with that, yes.
Make a wild stab in the dark at that one.
So clever.
And in with everything. So we are looking very close to game 1 here, Yuuya Watanabe. And there is Disperse. So Watanabe says, okay, well, I'll play it again. And hopefully that'll kill you next turn. And Shahar draws an island and says, yeah, it did. And I can tell you that Brian Kibler is 1-0 up over Stanislav Sivka. So that is where we are currently here in round 9. Dak Faden is the greatest thief in the multiverse. Follow his adventures in the Magic the Gathering comic produced by IDW. A special promo card unique to the IDW comic series comes in each issue. Find out more about these comics at wizards.com/magic merchandise. So I think Reed Duke would be the comic book hero of this tournament so far. The Reed to Redemption from last year, and back he comes. Don't laugh, it only encourages me.
Oh my
and
goodness.
he is back. There you see Yuuya Watanabe, though. This is a man that Reed Duke would like to become. 24 years old, 334 career pro points. Absolutely astonishing. Nearly $200,000 in prize money. And we talked about all those players at 59% at the Pro Tour and how tough it was to hit 60, 62% at the Pro Tour, 67 in Grand Prix. Both of those are totally Hall of Fame resume class stats there.
Yeah, a 62% Pro Tour win percentage is totally insane. And I think 19 Grand Prix top 8s is veering into ridiculous territory. I mean, Yuuya's played a lot of GPs, but I mean, his record, this is not just a matter of 19 top 8s because he shows up a lot. 451 GP wins and a ratio of nearly 70% of his games won is, I mean, totally unprecedented. Watanabe is just a force of nature when it comes to the game of Magic.
Yeah, and from those 19 top 8s, you would think on average that leaves you at sort of 2 wins on the slightly low side and 3 wins on the I'm doing very well side. Well, Watanabe has 6 wins from his 19 top 8s. He wins 1 in 3 of them rather than the everyone's all equal 1 in 8 that the math says should be. So, I mean, he is just a beast. As you say, it isn't just about turning up and being good. It's just whenever he's there, he's better than almost everyone else. And so nearly a 3-time Player of the Year. Let's not forget how close pretty much everyone had him as the favorite to be Player of the Year coming in to the end of the last season. And it was right at the death when Josh Utter-Leyton snatched it in the end. And there you see Shahar Shenhar's career numbers. They are inevitably less, but no less impressive because he's only 19, 112 career pro points, over $40,000 already in winnings. That'll pay for some college tuition somewhere down the line, I imagine. And 58% in a fairly young Pro Tour career inevitably, and he's played in 8 or 9 of those, but a 69% win rate in Grand Prix which is crazy given the number of sealed pools you have to build, the number of random losses you have to draft, the bad metagame calls, the bad matchups in all the different constructed formats you play. 69%, Zach, is crazy.
Yeah, and 6 top 8s to go along with that. I mean, we really see why Shahar is here at this tournament. Even at 19 years of age, he has had a very good last couple of years.
Now, I'll be very interested to see, particularly if he does make it into Sunday action, into the top 4, how he then fares as the Israeli national champion. I think he has a very good team behind him, but he is about to embark in one level. Today is the day before the Pro Tour begins, if you will. Right? And already he has played 8 matches of incredibly high stakes, high level, intricate Magic across 3 formats. And he's still got another brand new format to do through this evening. And then he starts to lead his team.
Yeah, and I mean, not only does that give him some momentum coming to the World Magic Cup, you've got to think about this from the perspective of his long-term Magic career. I mean, he has got 2 events this weekend to accrue pro points at and to, you know, cement himself as a pillar of the current Magic scene. And the fact that he's doing so well at this tournament is just a testament. You know, Shahar is one of he might be the future of Magic for the next several years.
Yep, and it's certainly something that Channel Fireball, they do know how to pick them. When you think of the sort of original Channel Fireball squad and you see the people who get in and you sometimes raise an eyebrow and think, I wouldn't have necessarily thought they would have been in the queue for Fireball, and you know, and then you find out that Shahar was there at the last Pro Tour for the first time with them and really delivering. For this tournament, he's been playing with Tom Martell, and those top 8, 6 top 8 GPs. Well, we talked about the conversion rate for Watanabe. Shahar, off slightly fewer, admittedly, is even better. He's won 3 Grand Prix from those 6 top 8, so boy, does he ever know how to close. And right now, that's what he needs to do, because he is at 6-2, playing against Watanabe 5-3. Remember, 8-4 at the end of today is roughly where you're going to be in the mix. Because it's much tighter, it's less likely that the 7 and 5s, you heard Luis over at the news desk say, the 7 and 5s less likely to make it in because no one's utterly dominating right now. But we're gearing up for game number 2. Shahar Shenhar on the left of screen. Down a game to Yuuya Watanabe. Watanabe won the race comfortably, had some decent flying defense against what is basically a tempo-ish deck from Shahar Shenhar. And we're underway with Island against Plains. Turn 2 for Shahar is the Plains that he's just drawn, and he passes. Watanabe will lay a second Plains, and down will come sliver number 1, and it will be Vigilant. Then we have a Warden of Evos Isle for Shahar. There's the Sentinel sliver on the right of your screen. All the slivers you control have Vigilant, so Watanabe does not need to send that sideways. And down comes Master of Diversion. This is a decent start from Watanabe, who is currently just mono-white, though, worth watching out for.
Now, powering out what appears to be an Air Servant there, the Warden of Evos Isle's special ability of occasional mana production doesn't do a lot very frequently, but when it's good, it is very good.
Yeah, and that's where we are now. The Master of Diversion tapped down the potential blocker, and so Watanabe is the aggressor at the moment, but there is a lot of flying power on the other side of the table. The Swamp potentially helps Watanabe here, who has grip of cards, of course, and now the 2 colors available to him. You see the Warden of Evos Isle, so creatures, spells, with flying, you cast cost 1 less. There's Watanabe's hand, and he does have plenty of things to kind of clog up the game a little. There's a Pacifism, there's a Quag Sickness. Later on in the game, he has a Cursed Spirit to intimidate his way potentially to victory. Charging Griffin can compete in the air. You see a look at Shahar's hand there. That's Shahar there with Divination. There's a Time Ebb there, Cancel, and Plains. So down comes the Accursed Spirit for Yuuya Watanabe. 3 to Intimidate.
Yeah, and that time ebb in Shahar's hand is potentially even better than he realizes right now. Yuuya does not have a second land. That Quag Sickness right there with only one swamp, not accomplishing a whole lot, but if it ticks up to 2, not only will he be able to kill the Warden of Evosile, his Auramancer will be able to get it back. So if Shahar chooses to time ebb here, it could really affect the pace of this entire game. The other thing he could do, though, he's got a Divination in his hand. Obviously, card advantage is never bad. And he can hold up cancel mana if he thinks he's going to be able to ride his Air Servant to victory here.
Well, I mean, it's certainly the most important thing on the board right now as he turns his 2 flyers sideways. And Shahar is going to pass the turn. Watanabe will send his team in again. There's nothing to tap. So in he comes. And Watanabe with 4 mana will pacify the big flying threat.
And the pacifism, very important there. Watanabe can't really risk laying another creature down only to have it removed, time ebb, dispersed. The downside of the pacifism on the Air Servant is that disperse is also very good against that. And Watanabe cannot attack with impunity into that Air Servant without some sort of plan to, if it suddenly finds itself able to attack and block again.
Extra cards off Divination for Shahar. He lays another island, so cancel mana is open, 2 blue and 1. Is there a scenario here, Zach, at some point in this game where we might see time ebb used to put the Air Servant back on top of Shahar's own library? Is it possible he might trade that in that way?
It's certainly possible. Given that that Watanabe has missed land drop already, I feel like if you had a time ebb, you just want to use it on whatever creature you can target. But I mean, certainly if this game stabilizes out, there's worse things you can do than going down a card to make sure you draw a 4/3 flyer that taps all of their 4/3 flyers.
6 to 10.
So 6 to 10, because that Master Eye Diversion is still doing pretty good work in terms of creating a space for Watanabe to charge through. And of course, he is 1 to the good, as we now see his what will be an aggressive 3/3 flyer. It's 2/2 right now, the charging Griffin.
And that's interesting, playing out the Griffin instead of the Spirit. So Griffin attacks for the same 3 damage. It means that Shahar is able to block. On the other end, it also means Watanabe is able to block. But it can be targeted by the Air Servant. So if Shahar finds himself with 3 extra mana, he can mitigate the impact of that Griffin at relatively little cost to himself.
Yeah, and the thing is, with 4 cards in hand for Shahar right now, including the cancel, including the fact that he has that activated ability which takes up half of his mana, you can see the 6 mana sitting there on the table on the left. In a sense, with cancel and the ability, everything's accounted for, but it doesn't particularly advance him in any really meaningful way. So he's kind of thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to try and advance things from what I have? Like, for example, he has the ability to cast Serra Angel right now. That's a possibility. At that point, though, and you see just round and round he goes as he looks at his cards. They're all viable things to hold up or to do.
Right.
But where does he go? Let's find out.
I think, I mean, if you're playing that in your Watanabe, what you're saying is, I want to block your Warden of Evosile. And what you're saying also is, I know that you can tap it, so you're kind of communicating that you want your opponent to tap 3 mana on his turn.
So, in we go. Watanabe does block, and it's going to be Show of Valor for the Warden of Evosile, at which point Watanabe falls to 7. And then the Warden of Evosile is still very much in play, as Watanabe has a look at the board state. Serra Angel has come down thanks to the 5th bonus mana, as it were, from the Warden of Evosile.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate the impact that Warden of Evosile has had on this game. It has powered out both Serra Angel and Air Servant on critical turns where every single point of mana has mattered, and that is enough to take this game.
So, Watanabe won. Shahar Shenhar. There he is from Israel, grinding away. He's had a fantastic run here at the World Championship, as we will continue to watch their action. We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at Worlds Week. If you use the promo code World Cup when ordering on GamingEtc.com, you can earn 10% off all singles and accessories. For more information, visit GamingEtc.com. So, we are waiting for more action here in the final limited round of the World Championship. Right here. As you see on your screen, a replay webcast of the whole day will start roughly 1 hour, 60 minutes after the end of day 2. Now, this is the important bit. To watch spoiler-free, if you go to wizards.com/webcast or twitch.tv/magic, you will not find any outcomes of any matches, no list of top 4s, no people grinning because they're coming back on Sunday. You can watch it all for real. So if you are watching live with us now, thanks so much for being with us around the world. Great to see so many countries involved in the webcast. But if you are watching now and you know you've got friends who want to come home from a day's work and see what's been going on, tell them about the spoiler-free replay starting roughly 1 hour after our webcast today concludes.
And one of the things I've been interested in is figuring out how each of these players intends to sideboard. I saw it disperse in Shahar's sideboard. We saw it come out of, or we saw him play it in the main deck the first time, so it could be he has multiple copies, is only playing one, but it also could be he took it out just based on what he saw in the first game. With that pacifism neutralizing his air servant, though, it might be a suggestion that you want to bring it back in. It's hard to say, but these are exactly the kinds of decisions, you know, sideboarding in limited, I think, is oftentimes a really underrated skill. You see all kinds of articles all the time about how to sideboard in different matches and constructed, but not as much conversation around what matchups different sideboard cards can be against different limited archetypes. And that's something I'm always interested in watching as we get to watch all these matches.
Congratulations to Martin Yuuya. He has a win. He's defeated Li Shichan of Hong Kong by 2-0. Martin, a terrific guy, phenomenal player, and one day may well turn out to be in the Magic Hall of Fame. But this has not been his 2 days in the sun, but he is off the mark, and that's great news. Congratulations to one of Europe's finest, a terrific guy, terrific ambassador, and a great player. 1-8. Makes you realize what he's been up against. So, here we go with Game 3. Watanabe is on the play. He begins with a Plains. It's opposite island from Shahar, which he's led off with every game. We see a Swamp on turn 2, and once again, it is the Sliver that gives vigilance. So, 2 will be turning not sideways, but just straight ahead into the central attack zone from Watanabe, and he adds with not pressure, but an Angelic Wall.
That's a really intriguing series of plays, right? You've got your Grizzly Bear that attacks and blocks, just following up confidently against the empty board with an 0-4 wall. You kind of have to hope, if you're Watanabe, you get to put a little more pressure than this, and but you don't always get what you want, and it looks like he's missing his 4th land drop right here.
Yeah, and also passing the turn partly as a result. And look, there's Disperse, and that is a pretty miserable start for Watanabe, because you would certainly feel that Shahar will start to gain advantage in terms of flyers on board and may well eventually be able to overcome this. So Watanabe, again, no 4th land. This has not been a good start for him. He's ahead in the life total. He's tied in the game score, but he is well behind here in Game 3 early. There you see the Disperse. Return target non-land permanent to owner's hand.
Now, one of the things about that Disperse is that Yuuya didn't really have anything else to do with his mana this turn. Not that Shahar knows that. So the cost of playing it again wasn't necessarily that high, but Shahar definitely able to capitalize on the time that he's able to create. Yeah,
and Yuuya very expressively, when he drew for that turn, just sort of looked at his hand, and there was this huge, I don't know whether you heard it over our effects microphone, but huge sigh from Watanabe. He's going to cast an Auramancer, which does, well, you know, nothing. I mean, it attacks and blocks, theoretically, but not doing a lot going on there. And Shahar, now look at this, piling in. Here comes Serra Angel. This is a blowout in the skies. Mind Rot. Oh, yeah, you cast that Mind Rot. Super. Just what you want to not infect the board in any way. Watanabe, double Charging Griffin, double Nightwing Shade, a Mastodon, Mind Rot, Liturgy of Blood. It's going nowhere. He would trade 2, 3, 4 of those for a couple of land. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Sorry, that's going nowhere. And that is huge because that sets Yuuya Watanabe back, the defending champion, to 5-4 going into modern. He is still alive because 8-4, we may see him back yet. But Shahar Shenhar was at 6 wins. He's now up to 7 wins, 7-2 going back into modern. And he will have to feel that he is very close to a top 4 berth, which would be fantastic achievement for him. Welcome back to the booth. Rich and Zach with you here. Pity that last game. Shame we didn't get much of a game.
Yeah, I mean, it was looking to be a great game. You know, we had several plays early on from Yuuya, but just it turns out when you don't draw lands, and when every card in your hand costs 4, 5, hard to do a whole lot. And Shahar definitely punished him for the lost time.
Yep, so you're just dead. Shahar Shenhar 7-2, Yuuya Watanabe 6-3. As we say, both alive. The general feeling is that because no one has utterly dominated, although Reed Duke is ahead of the field, remember, that probably the 7 and 5s are going to struggle to make it in. Last year, we had, of course, that incredible run by Shota Yasuoka, and that really changed everything because anyone who came in range of the killing machine that was Yasuoka just got sent right back to the scoreboard with exactly the number of wins they came in with. It's like, thanks for trying, you can go away.
Right.
Yeah, Japanese finest, you can go away too. Oh, right, Pro Tour champion, next. You know, Yasuoka, one of the most incredible performances I've ever sat through, for sure, last year.
Incredible.
But he didn't win the whole thing. Yuuya Watanabe did. And he's had a setback here, but he's still alive at 5-4. We've got much more magic coming for you in round 9, still going down on the table. I'm looking at my monitors. I can see multiple matches still going. I can see Reed Duke against Ben Stark still going. That could be pivotal in the destination of the top 4, because if Stark can beat Reed Duke, they will both be at 7-2. Shahar Shenhar at 7-2. You'll still have that 3-way tie at the top of the standings. So that's a big one. If Reed Duke can win, however, 8-1, I think that's just about done. Why don't we head down to the floor and see what Sheldon Menery has to say.
Sheldon Menery down in the feature match area with Shahar Shenhar. So 7-2, that kind of positions you nicely for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or for the rest of the day, sorry.
Yeah, for the next 3 rounds. Yeah, for sure.
Any mental preparation going into those 3 rounds?
Well, I'm going to go eat, and then I'm going to go sideboarding strategy with Tom Martell.
Okay. How big was that Warden of Avos Island game 2?
Well, it was a 2-2 flyer, you know, just a Windrake, but it was also, it got me Sea Kite into play and a bunch of flyers earlier on, so it was much better than Windrake, I would say.
It basically produces a little extra mana for you.
Yeah, especially when I'm missing little land drops, which I've been doing in this game.
All right, good luck the rest of the day. Shahar Shenhar, I'm Sheldon Menery. Back to the booth.
Thanks very much, Sheldon. A nice prosaic collection of answers from Shahar. What are you going to do? Thought I might do some food and some sideboarding.
Hey, man, can't argue with either of those plans.
Yeah, they kind of go together pretty well. So remember, it's a whole new format coming for them. It's back to constructed, but yesterday standard, today modern. And there are so many decks you can play there, any kind of matchups. Modern's a format where you can get incredibly skewed sort of interactions. I see, incidentally, that Shuhei Nakamura has defeated David Ochoa by 2-1. But Ben Stark and Reed Duke are still going. Duke at 7-1, Stark at 6-2. So the outcome of this could go a long way to determining, apart from anything else, gets Reed Duke in just about in at 8-1. And most of the rest of the chasers will be wanting that to happen, because from their point of view, Reed Duke's pretty much in.
Right.
Right? And at that point, let's bring Ben Stark
let him keep
back
winning
into the proceedings.
Right.
And just like, let's have a bun fight for the other 3 places. We can deal with Reed on Sunday when we come back. And then it's one format, the format we're about to see, which is modern. But right now, we're going to get down to action again. Hopefully, they can show us what's going on down on the floor, because I believe players are in action. Ben Stark against Reed Duke. Let's see if we can get down there and show you pictures of them instead of us. I'm certainly looking at a monitor of match action, which features an Elvish Mystic, which is being killed by Ben Stark. Here we are down there. You see the Elvish Mystic in the graveyard for Reed Duke on the left, Ben Stark on the right, using his shock to get rid of the Elvish Mystic, bolt the bird, as the phrase used to go, and now slightly more prosaically, shock the mystic, which isn't quite so catchy.
Sounds like a Peter Gabriel song.
Oh, indeed. Goblin Diplomats from Ben Stark. Intriguing in that it's a 2-1 for 2, but a thing that actually allows you to force opponents to attack into your better blockers. It's a weirdly sort of defensive card for a 2-1 for 2 in red.
Well, it's defensive in that you can make them attack into your blockers. It's offensive in the fact that you can say, oh, you're holding up on defense so that I don't kill you? That's good. Come over here. Let's have a party. Take a few damage and counterattack for the win. So a deceptively powerful card with a lot of varied applications for, you know, a 2-1 goblin that's sticking his tongue out at you.
David Ochoa has lost 2-1 to Shuhei Nakamura.
Go.
As the board continues to progress, Advocate of the Beast is down. Now, Vijit, you're looking at the hand there of Ben Stark, Dragon Egg. Going to come down. There's an Act of Treason there, a Dragon Hatchling as well. And there's Duke's Hand, Witch Stalker, Pitchburn Devil, Spore Mound, Woodborne Behemoth. And there you get a good look at all that fabulous magic art. Scavenging Ooze, such a great card at providing all sorts of impact in multiple formats. As we go back to Stark, still 20 apiece here in Game 2. Notice that Reed Duke leads by 1-0, so he may be one game away from the top 4. Potentially, because even if he fell to 8-4, realistically, you'd think he would be in.
So we see Ben now trying to capitalize on his 2/2 Dragon token. Reed not mustering a lot in the way of defense in the air, falling to 13 life. So I think this is going to be a game that's at least tries to be about an air force, as Reed plays at Pitchburn Devils, which if it dies can take care of that dragon, but can't do a whole lot until then.
I can tell you that Brian Kibler has defeated Stanislav Sivka of the Czech Republic by 2-0. That puts Kibler to 6-3, Sivka to 5-4, and are right on the edge. Kibler in reasonable shape at 6-3.
So we see Stark using the ability on Goblin Diplomats to clear the way on the ground for young Pyromancer. Pyromancer hitting, which is going to give him a token off this Act of Treason if he chooses to cast it. The other option, of course, being simply going all in on that dragon and trying to end the game before Reed can find an answer. Reed, very awkward hand. Stranded Colonian Tusker, Witch Stalker, Spore Mound, Woodborne Behemoth, all require 2 green mana.
Yep.
And Reed with 1 forest, not quite in a position that Ben would like to be in terms of having all red mana, because red mana is a lot better when you have a fire-breathing creature to pump it into.
Yeah, thanks R&D for the whole double green thing.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. So, there we go. Boom.
Yeah, that means Ben Stark wins that match. Reed, you know, sitting a handful of excellent cards, but just unable to do anything with it, and that Dragon Hatchling token takes it down.
Now that is a massive deal. So that's 1-1 at that one. So Ben Stark equalizes. So we will see a deciding game for who gets to go either to 8-1 for Reed Duke or 7-2 for Ben Stark. Magic 2014 is available now in Magic Online. Crack some packs for M14 Booster Draft and sealed deck queues right now. Starting August 2nd, you can enter 64-player Premier Drafts and Top 8 sealed deck events to earn invitations to the Magic 2014 Release Events Championship to be played August 18. For more information, visit mtgonline.com. So the players go through their repertoire, checking out what the other player has potentially in store for them in the deciding game. As we say, it's going to be the last game of Limited here at the World Championship for Magic in 2013. And we saw, Zach, right at the start of that game, an Elvish Mystic instantly get shocked by Ben Stark. Talk us through Elvish Mystic.
Well, Elvish Mystic, a functional reprint of Llanowar Elf. We've got Arbor Elf right now in Standard. It makes you have to have a forest in play, which is going to be problematic if you're casting this off, for example, a Sun Petal Grove. But the idea is we wanted to have an elf that was not only not on the plane of Llanowar, but was singular, which is why we decided to go with a new concept for this card. But, I mean, in the game we just saw, this card would have made literally all the difference in the world. After the Mystic got shocked, that meant that Reed was stranded off his second green mana for the entire game. And that allowed Stark to just roll him with a draw that wasn't particularly aggressive.
I think one of the differences between a Ben Stark and a lot of us is that we will do exactly that play. We'll go, hey, that's mana acceleration. Right. That's pretty good. I've seen a lot of time people do turn 1 accelerant, want to kill it, so they kill it. And then later in the game, they go on to win and they go, hey, that was great. Ben, of course, will have gone, I have looked at your deck list. I know that there are multiple double green spells in your deck list, including Witchstalker, which is potentially as early as turn 2 and is a big deal against me. And we saw him read earlier in the day with Lightning Talons onto the Witchstalker. I don't want any of that to happen. And for all those reasons that many other players wouldn't think of, I am just going to go on and pull that and you're going to end up with nothing.
Well, and as we saw with his hand, not as many targets for Shock as you could possibly have either. You know, I mean, normally Shock kills about half, 3/4 of the creatures in an opponent's deck. Not really as many targets in Reed, so you want to make use of that Shock while you can. That's exactly what Ben did.
So the big question for Ben Stark, whether or not he wins this game, because he does already have enough wins to be live going back into Modern, is he did not enjoy Standard yesterday at all. He was saying, hey, he was playing against Stanislav Sivka in the last round of Constructed yesterday, and they agreed. They had a pact. They said, today, they will simply draft Modern Masters amongst themselves. No one will ever tell the difference, and they'll just play that as their Modern deck, and it'll be completely fine. So he is not necessarily looking forward to Modern, and he may, depending on the result of this match, if he loses, he will need a strong Modern performance down the stretch to make the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, Ben definitely wants to be playing 40 rather than 60-card decks. But, you know, it's not as though he doesn't know how to play his Modern deck. He just simply says, you know, he feels like he definitely feels like he has an edge in Modern Masters draft against this field, and thinks that, you know, while he's competent playing Modern, he's, you know, not favored as heavily against the rest of the field.
So let's see what we get. Will they keep? Yes, says Reed. Thanks, good man. The electric cattle prod working perfectly.
Perfect, man.
And we're away. It is Forest for Reed Duke. And Ben Stark will open with a mountain.
Yeah, not a whole lot of action on this board. Certainly one of the slower games we've seen so far. No 2-drops on either side. No 1-drop Mystic either for Reed.
I believe that Josh Utter-Leyton has defeated Dmitry Budakov, and that means that Budakov is eliminated at 4 and 5. Josh Utter-Leyton, though, who already had 5 wins, up to 6 and 3. The player of the year is roaring forward. He is at 6 and 3 and very much alive going into Modern. Exciting stuff.
So we look at... is doing something during his main phase. I think trying to figure out, Ben, is how many beasts he has.
Witchstalker, beast or no beast?
Wolf.
Oh, they want to find... Ben wants to know whether Witchstalker is a beast or not. And no, it's a wolf.
Minotaur, beast or no beast?
Probably Minotaur, right?
So he's trying to figure out basically how highly he needs to value the Advocate.
That's a beast, right?
That's a beast.
And, okay.
So what Ben is doing is actually going through like a lot of 3 toughness creatures that Reed could have, because what that's telling him is, does he need to use Flames of the Firebrand on Advocate before he passes and Reed casts a beast and immediately puts a counter on it, which would take it out of the range of Flames of the Firebrand. So I think he's ascertained what they are, but I think what he's going to do is just cast a Regathan Firecat and say, all right, you know, whatever you got, you have. And as we know, Reed actually has a Marauding Maulhorn, which is in fact a beast and does in fact have 3 toughness, but what he doesn't have right now is the 4th land to cast it.
Oh, savage.
So this might end up working out for Ben, who himself does not have a 4th land and really needed to apply pressure and get some threats on the board.
Yeah, both players a little crippled here. You see Duke's hand, Boar, Spider, Maulhorn, Battle Driver, Geyser, Ricochet. There they are in all their glory.
And he knows, like, the thing about Maulhorn getting the 4th counter is that it still has 4 toughness and it still must attack. So assuming that Firecat can stay on the board, it can theoretically trade with the Maulhorn, as can, of course, Stark's own Maulhorn and potentially the Pitchburn Devils if he gets enough mana to cast it. Right now, the mighty Brindleboar hitting the battlefield.
Oh, I love a Brindleboar.
Oh, yeah? Here, Piggy Piggy.
The what now?
Oink, oink, man.
Okay.
And looks like Stark drew another Maulhorn there. Really needs it. So both these players missing their 4th land drop and missing their marauding Maulhorn play. I think, you know, Stark can use the Flames to at least advance his board position, but he doesn't really want to trade Firecat for a boar right now.
Yeah, and he knows full well that Reed's all about that trade.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing is, you know, again, like he was going through, the Flames is not going to be able to hit very many more targets because Advocate takes so many cards out of Flames of the Firebrand range. We saw there a thing you don't see that often, which was a Volcanic Geyser for 1, dealing with the Firecat, which is pretty important when you don't have anything to block. So we see Stark hit his 4th land, but does not... oh, and wow, an Ogre Battle Driver right here, really setting up the next turn Maulhorn if he's able to put that together. On the other end, he might just say, okay, I'm going to lead off with the with yet another Maulhorn. Yeah, it just looks like he just wants to get size on the table and get damage on the table as quickly as he can.
Well, 5/3 certainly does that.
Or sorry, it's Ogre Battle Driver and Duke's
sure.
hand. My fault. That makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yep. And go away and then smash. Ben Stark loves those 5/3s in the biggest way.
Well, and I mean, Juggernaut has been a card, an incredibly good limited card for as long as it's been legal, and doing tons of work here, just incrementing Duke's life, taking huge chunks out of it, and now having to play a defensive Ogre Battle Driver, it looks like.
It turns out to be quite a good defensive Ogre Battle Driver because his 1 remaining forest is good enough, of course, for Giant Growth, which we know he has.
And it looks like he is also holding Fog in his hand. In a matchup like this, where you're dealing damage in huge chunks of 10, 15, Fog can gain you a lot of life, like presumably it's going to do now.
9.
Oh, okay. Well, or he takes the trade. I could see fogging and trying to set up a big attack next turn, but it looks like Reed wanting to preserve his life total and try and stabilize. Maybe even attempt to eventually use that Wild Ricochet on a removal spell to deal with Ben's board.
So Giant Spider comes down, and that 1 forest that remains is enough for Reed to either Giant Growth or Fog.
Right.
And Ben says, yeah, let's just take a moment to read chapter and verse. And so this is what we call in-game notes, essentially. Normally, in a typical Magic formula, you'd be writing things down, and you would just say, okay, I remember he played this in Game 1 and this in Game 1. But because the players are around each other, and so many of them are on camera, and of course they've all got friends watching around the world,
right.
Just for sort of freedom of information around the 16, not to disadvantage anyone, we just say, here's the deck list. It's as if you've written it all down. You remembered what they played, and you can look. So Pitchburn Devils now from Stark, and Reed in trouble here, and I think the field may be about to tighten up. What does Reed draw? It's another Advocate of the Beast to go with his Wild Ricochet and Giant Growth.
So we did see Reed use the Fog, but it wasn't just to stay alive. It did get a seismic strike assault seismic. Yeah, he can't block this turn. Anyway, Ben used that to deal with the Giant Spider, and but Reed had the Fog, so that's one threat that he doesn't have to worry about. He can block the Vampire Overlord now. Of course, with Pitchburn Devils on the table, that's less awesome than it might be otherwise. But Duke, at least in a better position than he was last turn, relatively speaking. But you know, still needs to commit something to the board, or he's going to die to this attack.
The fabulous Nick Fong, who keeps an eye on all things scoreboard for us, shares with us that the winner of the match that you are looking at right now will be our sole 6-0 drafter at this event.
Wow.
So this isn't just an end of round and an end of format, this is the last limited, and someone will be 6-0. And Stark piles things out. You see the Goblin Diplomats, Regathan Firecat, he's sending everything in. He's out of cards, but I don't think Ben minds that. All the fun stuff is on the table for him. Up against Giant Spider and Advocate of the Beast, there's Forest Mountain open for Duke. We know he has that giant growth, so he has the capacity to make some inroads into the opposing board. But let's not forget that that Pitchburn Devils, if it ever dies, is going to deal damage very likely to Reed's face as he casts his giant growth to make his Advocate of the Beast nice and big. And Reed draws. He has drawn a forest. I don't think that's what he wanted to see roundabout then.
So this is an interesting situation for Reed, because Reed actually hopes Ben draws something really good right here. Because what he has is a Wild Ricochet that he wants to target a removal spell with, but can't do that to a Regathan Firecat.
It's Young Pyromancer. That's game. That is match. And that is Ben Stark winning. Ben Stark going to 6-0 in Limited. And crucially, Ben Stark going to 7-2. Reed Duke falling to 7-2. There is going to be a three-way tie at the top of the standings here at the World Championship 2013. You've got Shahar Shenhar at 7-2. You've got Ben Stark at 7-2. And now you've got Reed Duke at 7-2. If memory serves, Zach, that is the second time format in a row where Reed Duke has been defeated at the end by Ben Stark.
Yeah, I think that's happened twice now.
Yeah, 5-0 coming into the last round last night. Ben Stark brought himself back into the mix with a win. And then here we see at the end of the limited portion of the World Champ, we have 6-0 for Ben Stark, only the 5-1 for Reed in Limited.
Yes, a mere 5-1. I guess he'll have to content himself with that performance.
Okay, so we have those three at 7-2, and then we have others definitely in contention. One of the big emerging storylines for sure is that of Josh Utter-Leyton, the Player of the Year, because he's so solid and so dependable, and he talked about this field being about a tournament of mistakes, a tournament where everyone was so tight that you didn't get free wins. The matchups weren't going to be desperately lopsided because everyone knew what the matchups were. So why would you play a deck where you were going to have lots of terribly bad lopsided matchups against you? And it was going to come down to playing super, super, super tight. And he has gradually edged his way back in. He was way distant.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, he
four
wasn't even
rounds.
part of this conversation, really, after 4 rounds.
And he was in the second pot.
Yeah.
But he is the one who has emerged from that. And I believe he was mono blue. I didn't see much of him during the last 2 rounds, but I believe he played mono blue, and I believe it was really, really good. And it got him all the way back to 6-3. Now, the tie breaks. A quick reminder, we have this new tie break system here at this event, cumulative. And the simple version is win early, win often. Your wins, when they happen, are what really matter. Because if you pile your way up to 6-0 and then you lose a couple, well, there's no shame in losing in round 7 and 8. But if you go 0-2 and then build your way up to 6-2, well, the chances are you've played someone else on 0-2 for a start, so maybe their decks weren't great, maybe they weren't a fantastic player, then you were playing someone at 1-2, so your wins are just worth less than if you're pounding away at the top of the leaderboard. So basically, Reed Duke, because he has led all the way, is in a wonderful position in terms of tie breaks, whereas Josh Utter-Leyton, who is working his way, driving his way desperately, clawing his way back through the field, is still trying to say, I wonder if I can get back there. And he, I think, may feel that at 8-3, even if he wins the next 2, that he will have to win a last round to be sure, because if he's on 8-4, who knows, that could be the outside looking in maybe 5th place and just running out of rounds. So still a ton of work to be done for the Player of the Year. Limited. It's done. Next, Zach, we turn our attention to Modern, and we got a ton of stuff lined up over halftime. I know that an event that you enjoyed tuning into when you can't be there. I know, as someone inside R&D, the event that Wizards of the Coast loves more than any other in the year is the Community Cup. right?
It's our one chance to actually play Magic.
That's right.
Which is nice.
It's right. You get to play competitive Magic. And the Community Cup, we have an announcement during the halftime show while the players go away, have a bite to eat, get their modern decks ready. We will announce the team that will be representing you guys and girls in the 2013 Community Cup against a ragtag band of fugitive misfits, or whatever the phrase is, that represent the might of Wizards of the Coast. So how long before you can play for the community rather than for the Wizards of the Coast? Now you're not with them.
If I wound up playing some Magic Online, I might be able to do that now. I don't really know how most of the rules work. I just know I can't play most of the time, and when I want to play, I call them. So
all right.
Then they tell me whether it works or not.
That'll be part of the halftime show coming right up. Lots of other goodies with Luis Scott Vargas, Brian Over Marshall, cast of thousands. But right now, we're going to be done with Limited. We're going to toss you back to the news desk and Marshall Sutcliffe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the news desk. Marshall Sutcliffe here, and I have a special guest. We're going to have a little chat with Josh Utter-Leyton, known as Raptor to his friends and fans. Josh, how's the tournament been for you so far?
Feeling pretty good about it right now. Sitting at 6-3, coming off of the draft rounds.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the draft. Did you get a chance to draft M14 a lot coming in?
Not a ton. Did a few drafts online and got probably a handful in real life too. So not the most.
Overall comfort level coming in with it?
Reasonably comfortable. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you've drafted so many formats over the years that I'm sure you have a lot of shortcuts to try to figure out what's most essential in a draft format. But at the same time, it does take a certain amount of drafts before you find all those niche interactions.
Right. One thing about this format is that there are not like a whole lot of synergies. It's mostly just taking, the best card in your color or whatever each pack.
Yeah.
So it is a lot more straightforward and easier to learn because of that.
Now, tell us a little bit about the deck that you ended up with for M14 draft.
Yeah,
it was pretty spicy.
I ended up in a mono blue Flyers deck.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
And so how does that deck work?
It worked by just curving out with Flyers, attacking with them. Had some counter spells and a little bit of removal.
A little bit of tempo,
if you count the blue Swords to Plowshares, sensory deprivation.
Yeah, I did see you had a couple of those on the battlefield against Eric Froelich. I happened to walk by and watch your match for a little bit. You had an opportunity?
I did. I had
divination? Yeah, so you were able to keep some momentum.
An answer to rebuy them.
Yeah, that's nice. Now, so the question becomes, whenever I see a monocolor deck in a draft format, especially core set, is so you know what that deck does well. You said it. You said, look, I curved out with Flyers and I hit him in the air. What is the mono blue deck missing? Like, what are the holes that you needed to have filled for that deck that maybe you just couldn't?
Generally, it's removal. And that was certainly something that my deck was lacking. I had 1 Claustrophobia, 1 Time Ebb, which doesn't really count, though it certainly helps with 2 cancels to go along with it, and then 2 sensory deprivations. So that's not really the removal you're looking for.
No.
It's a little light,
No Doom Blades available.
Like last round I played against a Wall of Swords, and it's like, oh, well, that suddenly brick walls my entire team, but I can't do anything about it.
Wow. So does it work like you've got these tempo cards? Did you have any Disperse?
None.
Was that a card you'd like to see in the deck?
Yeah, I definitely would have wanted one of those for the deck. It would have been very good.
So the Time Ebb all of a sudden took on a lot of weight for you.
Yeah, it was an important part of the deck for sure.
Yeah. Now, how did the deck do?
I went 3-0.
You went 3-0 with it, so that is absolutely the best possible. Toughest matchup?
Definitely Tom Martell's deck. He was playing green-white, just like good curve, bunch of pump spells. It's hard for me to do like race 4/4s. They're just like more efficient than the Flyers, and I don't really have the removal to keep them at bay. So squeaked out of that one very luckily. Yeah,
well, I'm sure luck had part to do with it, but probably more skill than that.
I mean, it was definitely a very bad matchup for me.
Yeah, it was. Did you know that going in?
Well, yeah, looking at his deck list, I knew I was in a lot of trouble. He even had Windstorm, the 4-mana Plague Wind,
Yeah, so, against your deck. I walked by and I saw that you had 3 Seacoast Drakes. You had been stuck on mana for what looked like quite a few turns in a row.
Yeah, that was against Ifra in round 1.
Yeah, but overall, you were able to pull out a 3-0 there. Would you take that deck again? I mean, was it one of the better draft decks that you've had so far in M14?
No, I think it was probably about average. It was certainly not the best deck in the pod. So no, I'd probably not take it again and hope to spike a better deck.
Now, we were talking with Luis Scott Vargas, your very good friend, a little earlier about M14 archetypes. One of them that came up was mono black. And one of the things that we noted about a monocolored archetype is that you you'll have a lot of really good cards in your sort of first pick type categories. But as you get to the 20, 21st, 22nd, 23rd card, sometimes in order to stay monocolored, you have to put in a few suboptimal cards. Did you have to do that for this deck?
I didn't. So the thing about I had exactly 23. You know? When my opponents are looking at my when my opponents are looking at my deck list, they count the playables that I'm playing. You know, oh, exactly 23. Okay, I know your exact deck list or whatever. I mean, I guess the one card I could have is like, are you playing splashing a shock or not?
Yeah.
So I wasn't like trying to draft mono blue. It just happened that every pack I was taking a blue card because it's the best card in the pack, and didn't really have a reason to deviate. So that's kind of how I ended up there. Normally, if you're trying to draft mono black or whatever, it's not necessarily because it's that open.
Yes.
So you do have to stretch a bit more for playables because of that.
I like it. You just made it to the finish line. You know, Luis was saying sometimes you got to run 18 lands. You know, you don't quite get there, but it's worth it because of the consistency. I mean, when I walked by, like I said, it looked like you were stuck on number of lands, but you certainly didn't have any color problems.
Right.
You know, for the duration, and that's one of the huge benefits that you get from being monocolored. Now, let's talk a little bit about your modern deck.
Okay.
So you played Jund in Standard, is that correct?
Correct.
And what are you going to play in Modern?
Basically Jund.
Yeah. Now, what's
we're not playing red, so we're just green-black, but it is just a Jund deck. It's, Bob, Goyf, Deathrite, now Scavenging Ooze, Liliana. It's the same Jund deck, just
but there's
with
no red
lightning
cards?
bolt. No red cards.
Oh, interesting. Any white cards?
Nope, just straight green-black.
Okay. And so talk to us a little bit about how the deck works. Does it have that grindy 2-for-1, good against everything or good enough against everything type feel?
Yeah, it's exactly the same way that the normal Jund deck is. It's just kind of the most efficient threats in Bob and Goyf, and then kind of interaction to make those matter. You have discard and removal, trying to just trade one for one a bunch and make your last card be a Goyf in 3 lands versus their 3 lands and their 1 card, and that usually works out pretty well for you. So
your mana must be awesome. I mean, Modern offers really nice mana bases.
Actually, the mana is probably worse than, than the 3-color deck because we're playing 4 Tectonic Edge, and that was the draw to only playing 2 colors. I basically thought that Tectonic Edge was going to be better for this field than Lightning Bolt.
Now, when you say this field, we're talking about the World Championship, 16 players total. Now, your team took up 3 of those slots. It was you, Ocho,
and Ifro. We're all playing the same deck.
All
and
the
then
same
we
deck.
also tested with Kidler, who's playing a different deck.
He's going to play a different deck. So you knew that there was 13 other decks out there. What did you guys expect?
I was expecting a lot of Jund. I think it was the best deck before, and gaining Scavenging Ooze, it's like it gains more from Scavenging Ooze than other decks do, and I think it's just a really, really good card in the deck.
Okay, so if that's the case, what made you ditch Lightning Bolt? I mean, come on, it's Lightning Bolt. Have you read that card?
I think the difference between Lightning Bolt and Dismember in terms of just quality of removal is pretty small.
Okay.
Particularly in a field where you're not really concerned about aggressive decks. We weren't really expecting people to play Burn or the red-green aggro deck, Affinity. If you're expecting a lot of those, then you can't really afford the 4 life. But when you're playing Jund mirrors or against blue-white decks, it's perfectly fine to just be able to kill anything.
That's really interesting. So how do you guys feel about your Jund mirror matchup? I'm assuming pretty darn good.
No, it's just a mirror.
It's still the same mirror, even though you've made some. I mean, because I assume that those Lightning Bolts were replaced by something pretty sweet.
Basically, Dismember is taking that slot.
All right, so you just.
So I think that's kind of a wash in the matchup.
Okay. The Tectonic Edge is pretty good in that?
Edge is definitely good. A lot of games will come down to man lands after everybody trades with everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of the last thing left standing. So Edge definitely gives you a little bit of an edge there.
All right. So looking forward, I'm going to let you go in just a minute here, but. You said you were feeling pretty good coming in here. How confident are you about Modern? Remember, you're going to play it now, and then if you make it to the top 4, you're going to be playing it again. How confident are you in the deck?
I like the deck, but I don't really know when anyone else is playing yet, so I don't know if it's good for the field or not.
Yeah, and that's the big question here, isn't it? All right, Josh, thanks a lot for your time. We certainly appreciate it. I'd like to wish you good luck in the following rounds. Now, what we're going to do is I've got a promo video for you that the Walking the Plains guys made about the World Magic Cup to kind of get things in a mode, and then when we come back, we have a cool announcement from Rich Hagan. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Okay.
A battle of nations. A clash of titans. The most epic week of competition the game of Magic has ever seen. 71 countries competing for the cup. The 16 best players in the world all vying to stand alone at the top. 5 days, 7 formats, 2 events, live from Amsterdam to your laptop or mobile device. The World Magic Cup and the World Championship. It's Worlds Week. Popcorn not included.
On day 2 of the World Magic Cup, Rich Hagan alongside the new member of the Hall of Fame, one of the 3, Mr. Louis Scott Vargas. Welcome along. Plenty of stuff going on in the halftime break. The players are off having a bit of dinner, getting ready for their modern decks. And Louis, I want to ask you, in a typical Pro Tour, you see players who are fresh to the game and they get themselves to 6-2 overnight, let's say, and then they maybe win their draft pod and they're at 9-2, and then you see them getting rid of their limited decks, coming back to constructed. And sometimes I get to look at them and I think, you are done. You are finished, and it's got nothing to do with what cards they're playing or who they're about to play. It's that they themselves have reached their limit of magical playing ability for the weekend, and you can see it physically in them. And certainly a lot of the time, one of the things that I notice about the Channel Fireball squad, particularly when there were so many of you so dominant, it was almost like round about round 13 was when you all kind of woke up and started going, okay, so 9-3, 10-2, maybe want to use 11-1. And now, roll up the sleeves, it's time to play Magic because the top 8's coming into view. How important is it to be playing within yourself round after round so that when it really matters, there's still some brain power left?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that you play different or no different in round 1 from round 15. Mm-hmm. The reality is that that isn't really what happens, especially at like a long Pro Tour or Grand Prix, where at the the last rounds of each day are much tougher. But if you see the guys who consistently do well, don't really let that affect them. They either have practice because they're just used to these long days. They've maybe played on Magic Online, where the tournaments do take quite some time, and they basically have an even tempo of playing throughout the entire tournament.
I certainly watched Thomas Enervoldsen, a Grand Prix winner, and we had him on camera, I think, with 3 rounds of Swiss to go, and he was by no means certain to make top 8. He looked all over the winner of that event because it was a really grinding weekend. And he was just completely fresh. He was like 21, he was clean cut, he was like he was having a day at the beach. And it was like, 5 hours of Magic from now, you're just going to lift the trophy. And again, nothing to do with the deck, nothing to do with placing. It was just, he was ready to play when others weren't. Which brings us to 9 rounds gone. A day and a half already of action. Multiple players eliminated, but still half a dozen, maybe more in the mix. Who's still got petrol left in the tank as we head down the stretch?
I would say that most of these guys are in pretty good shape. I think no one gets here without having a lot of preparation. And even the least tournament experience in Budakov, he still actually has, if you win a Magic Online championship, you're used to playing for 12 hours, 15 hours even at a stretch. So I would say that most of these guys, even though they've played now 9 rounds, are pretty well prepared for the last 3.
Yeah, I can say that if we take a look at our scoreboard, we've got that up there, not quite completely finished with that last round, but I think Budakov has done very well for himself. He lost his last round, he's now 4-5. Li Shichan gone at 3-6. The other 4-5s well and truly gone. Martel out, Nakamura out, Eric Froelich out at 3-6. Willie Adel is gone as well. Stanislav Sivka 4-5. Gone. But you look at the likes of Yuuya Watanabe at 5-4, he will hope to get to 8-4 after Modern and feel that that may well be enough. And then, of course, you've got Brian Kibler and Josh Utter-Leyton at 6-3. They will be certain that if they can just run the table in Modern, I say just ha ha ha, but if they can get to 93, that will for sure be enough. And then you have the 3 co-leaders. As we had overnight, it was a 3-way 5-1 split, now 3-way 7-2. Stark, Shenhar and Duke. And certainly Reed Duke will be thinking, because of the tie-break situation, that if he can get one more win from where he is now, 8 8-4 because he made all his winning early. He won his first 5. He is going to be in tremendous shape. And what a turnaround from last year, Luis.
Yeah, he certainly has, flipped it and reversed it. He went from going 2-10 to now being 7-2, which is quite an accomplishment.
It really is. So if he keeps winning like this, he'll have like a 50-50 record in the event by the end of the weekend.
In Magic, it's actually much better to lose all your matches and then win all your matches than to win half each time. So that's actually what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the greatest performances of all time, and you have one of the highest win percentages on the Pro Tour ever. And, around about, let's say, 65%. So let's call it 66. Well, that's like going 4-2 at a PTQ if you do it every time, which means you'd never get a PTQ top 8 ever if you were just at your average.
Right, if you just averaged it out.
And that's why no one is ever likely to actually win one of these things. You look at Paul Rietzl winning Pro Tour Amsterdam here, and the first time he was favourite to win the Pro Tour he won was when he was ahead in the final, having eliminated 417 of the other 418. And that's the first time anyone's ever likely to win than not, which is just extraordinary. So I think that's perhaps one of the biggest reasons why you and the best players constantly say it's just a game at a time, a turn at a time.
Yeah. Every round is just, they stand by themselves.
Talk to me about Josh, because there is certainly an arcing storyline developing with him that, pretty much we hadn't quite got him out the door by the end of the day yesterday, but it was close, and there he was in the second pod. He's the big winner so far today.
Yeah, he's rattled off now 5 in a row, and including 3-0ing with a mono blue draft deck, which is not something I've seen before in this format.
That's pretty exciting. So you did this fantastic piece earlier on, which I was able to catch a lot of, which was going through all those M14 archetypes. How highly did you have mono blue?
We left off mono blue somehow.
Did you really? Did you?
But he ended up with the right deck for it. He did like Opportunity, Divination, Cancel, Archaeomancer, and then a ton of flyers.
Yeah, so basically I will draw everything, and everything turns out to go over the top.
Yeah, including Air Servant, which is like the best of them.
Oh, isn't that such a great card? All right, so from the scoreboard then, pick out, I'm actually going to get into sort of strategist mode now, pick out 4 semi-finalists for me.
I think that at this point I would not count anything against it being Reed Duke, Shahar Shenhar, Ben Stark, and I actually think Josh Utter-Leyton. Those would be the 4 that I'd be looking at.
Okay, I think if we asked them, the one who would perhaps feel most vulnerable is Ben Stark. He's 6-0'd limited, let's not forget.
As usual.
Which means he is 1-2 in constructed. He said yesterday he wanted to play Modern Masters Draft again instead of Modern, and he thought maybe he'd have just as much a chance.
They're also playing the same standard deck and the same modern deck.
Right, so what is that? What are they playing?
They're playing Blue-White-Red Control. So if you want 1-2 in standard, obviously it's not the same format, but he still can't be looking forward to it.
Right, so that's a potential vulnerability. Meanwhile, if we go slightly further down, because of course, because it's Swiss pairings, they will play against each other. 2 of those 7-2s will face each other. The third 7-2 will play a 6-3, and if they win, essentially eliminate or bring very close to the edge one of those 6-3s. And that means that maybe someone on 5-4 like Yuuya Watanabe or Craig Wescoe are still in the hunt, because 3-0 for either of them brings them to 8-4 and into the tie-break shuffle.
Yeah, I mean, you've certainly got a lot of people who have viable chances at this point. I mean, these 3 rounds are going to be very big for determining exactly which of the 5-4s could jump to 8-4 and which of the 7-2s could actually miss.
Well, you know full well that those 16 players are battling for the World Championship. It's a pretty big deal. But I also know that for some of you at home, it's not as big a deal as beating the hide off Wizards of the Coast in the Community Cup.
Which is fun.
Which is fun, right? And that's what we're going to talk about now. I can tell you that we have an announcement for the whole team for the Community Cup. So I'm going to bring that to you now. So let's take a look at our first competitor for the Community Cup for the community in 2013. Let's take a look, bring it up, and there you see it is Jan van der Vecht. Das DZY. His format of choice is unpowered cube. He doesn't want the power 9 in there. He just wants to play with cube. The other thing, he's a very competitive Magic the Gathering player, has come very close on a number of occasions to the very top of European Grand Prix land, and you will have seen him most often. His big sort of community product is he is a Magic Online streamer as DZYL, Dizzle, and we get so many people asking for us when we're at the European Grand Prix. The chat room is full of what's Jan van der Vecht doing, how is he getting on. He's a terrific streamer, plays for hour after hour after hour, and he's tremendous entertainment. If you haven't checked out his stream, you really should. So that's number 1. Who is number 2 on the community? It is Kea Saleh of the United States. Now his format of choice, he's looking very cool and laid back there. And his format of choice is Legacy for Constructed and pretty much any kind of limited. That's what he is doing. And we move on to Kenji Egashira. So Kenji is Numot the Nummy, which I found very, very difficult to say. He says anything that's limited is what he will play. His other buyer, he is another Magic Online streamer, and he, now, master of punting, for those of you who don't know the expression to punt, it implies that on occasion you may, for example, have got a Teferi in play and then make a second Teferi to try and shorten the clock. That is something that I may or may not have done once upon a time in the past. That would be representative of a punt, or the verb to punt, to not be optimal at Magic, and he apparently is the master of punting. So he is on the Community Cup. That'll be interesting to see how he does in that. Let's see who is next on our big board. We have Matthew Watkins. I have a lot of time for Matthew Watkins. Terrific guy. Looks like Ticket to Ride in the background there, and Dominion, a gamer all round. His Twitter handle you see there. His format of choice. Now you see, that is not a format of choice, Matthew Watkins. That is a laundry list of formats. What are you doing? Standard, limited, pauper, commander, EDH. He just basically loves Magic. Winner of the Art Arcanum on Pure MTGO. He is a Magic Online streamer and a Magic Online analyst, and it's as the analyst that I would know him most readily, and he puts together phenomenal numbers every season about what cards are being played, what cards are in the most successful decks, what cards are going to lead you to success, which archetypes are getting played the most. Matthew Watkins is the guy who really, really breaks down the Magic Online numbers for you. All right, so on we go. The Community Cup. You will also be represented by Tom Delia. There you see it. Now, he did have the right idea. He had one choice for format, and it was Commander. An avid Magic the Gathering player. Heavy emphasis on the Commander format. That is his format of choice. And let's face it, you can play infinite combinations of cards in that wonderful format. His YouTube channel you see there, the MTG Radio. And that is how he streams. So Tom Delia is part of your Community Cup team for this year up against Wizards of the Coast. And now, one of our lady players, Twitter, all we do is win MTG. It is Melissa Datura. She's not wrong. All we do is win. She's had a fantastic couple of years. Top 8s at Grand Prix, top 8, of course, at Pro Tour Gatecrash, a writer for TCGplayer.com. And along the way, a lot of people forget this about Melissa. She is a level 2 judge. So congratulations to her for being part of the Community Cup team, one of the finest players on the team. But there are some more strong players to come. Who's up next, I wonder? I am so pleased about this, I have to tell you. This is just about my favorite way to spend an evening watching the internet, watching people stream Magic. Michael Jacob, former pro, his format of choice is competitive draft, and boy does he ever mean it. He is a fantastically serious competitor. You see, pro Magic Gathering player, Hall of Fame nominee. That means he's got over 100 pro points, and he is a Magic Online streamer as Darkest Mage. You can learn so much from watching Michael Jacobs stream, and if you ever get the chance, one of the great privileges, this has happened to me multiple times, the chance to find yourself playing against him, and when he's beaten you, you can go back and watch his stream and find out why he's better at Magic than you are. I think it's fantastic to have him on the team. I can't wait to see him in action at the Community Cup. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I think they need 8 for a team. Let's see if there's anyone else to join the Community Cup. Wait. No, I don't want anyone for the World Championship. I want to know who's in the Community Cup. Really? Reed Duke is in the Community Cup, ladies and gentlemen. His format of choice is Sealed Deck. His other bio, Platinum Pro Magic the Gathering player, Mox champion, winner of Grand Prix Miami, winner of the last round. Oh, wait, no. But currently sharing the lead at 7-2 in the World Championship. And you've got Reed Duke on your screen right now. And if you come to the desk, you've got Reed Duke on your screen right now as well. Hi, Reed, how are you?
Hey, Rich, I'm never better.
Okay. Now, it's possible I may be about to ask you to lie to me live on air, and it goes like this. Reed, I understand that the World Championship is a big deal, and a lot of people are very committed to it, and they work hard, and they would love to win it. But be honest with us now, Reed. Surely nothing is occupying your attention more right this minute than representing the community in the Community Cup. Am I right?
Well said, Rich. The World Championships, while it's important, prestigious, it really pales in comparison to having a chance to represent the community in the Community Cup.
Oh, you did that beautifully, thank you. That's one for the ages. Listen, congratulations on being part of the community. And of course, it will be a lot of fun and a lot less pressure than these 2 days that we've got right now. What are you most looking forward to? Have you been to Wizards before? Have you been in Seattle to see the offices?
I've seen it from the outside, you know, the big Wizards logo on the building. I've never been inside.
Okay, well, there's a lot going on in there, and, you know, if you want to talk off air, I can tell you where a lot of the bodies are buried. But meanwhile, back with the World Championship itself, because obviously there are bigger fish to fry right now for you. 7-2, a phenomenal run yesterday. How did you feel after the last round yesterday? Were you deflated by coming out 5-1 rather than 6-0?
You know, to some extent, it's always a little bit frustrating to end the day on a loss, because you're like, well, I was feeling a lot better an hour ago, or, you know, well, I could have done a little bit better. But that said, I was sharing the lead along with Shahar and Brian, and I knew it was a good day's work, and just meant I had to continue doing well today.
Absolutely. So at that point, unlike most Pro Tours, you know that one of those constructed decks has gone away. So the standard you can forget all about.
Yeah,
Modern
left it
Masters
at home.
you can forget all about. So it is not just a new day. It really is like a new tournament. So what were your sort of goals coming in to M14? Did you have a sense of where you wanted to be, or is M14 a format where it is about seeing what the very good players near you are giving you?
It's both. I had certain preferences coming into the draft. I really liked blue control, or black-based control. And I ended up going a little bit outside my comfort zone, drafting a red-green beatdown deck, but I opened Scavenging Ooze, which is a really powerful card, stood out as the best card in the pack. And, it became apparent midway through the draft that those were good colors to be in, and I just ran with it.
Okay. You come out, again, you go win. So now there you are at 7-1, you're undefeated on the day. And then off we go again, and here comes Ben Stark. And that would have been a killer matchup at any time. But here, we were saying in the booth, I had the privilege to commentate on the match, it felt like winning that one would have essentially locked you pretty much.
Right. Yeah, it would have been big to win that one. And worth noting is I would have put a little bit of distance between myself and Ben, but now since he beat me, we have the same record, and it's likely I'm going to have to, face him again on the way to the top 4.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Modern. First of all, in general, what is the shape of Modern? What should the viewers, be looking out for over the next 3 rounds?
Modern, as opposed to Standard, is just huge in terms of the card pool, and in terms of the number of decks, and in terms of the varieties in which you can build each deck. So it's really, really difficult to say this is the best deck, or this deck's unplayable, or this deck beats this deck, because there are just so many possibilities, and so much of it depends on what you're going to face. So during lunch here, we got to finally learn what all the competition was playing, and yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenging day. Like, no one deck really stood out as being dominant over all the others, but... Okay,
what are you doing then? Because now that everyone has seen, it's not like players can watch what you're doing. So tell everyone, what are you going to play?
Personally, I'm playing the green-white auras deck. complete with Slippery Boggle and Glade Cover Scout.
So this is sort of Bant hexproof, if you will, kind of thing. All right. Okay. So in terms of what we're going to see on the board from you, creatures that have basically never seen the light of day in the history of Magic, with enchantments on top of them that have basically never seen the light of day in the history of Magic, with on top of those a really good green enchantment that everyone wants in every game of Limited ever.
Right.
That's approximately what we're going to see from you. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So there's Reed Duke, 7 and 2, about to go into Modern. No, the deck's terrific, and it's terrific fun as well, because it's almost literally, as we say, a vertical deck, because it is just card on top of card on top of card. It's a wonderful deck. How do you think it is positioned now that you've seen what else is out there, and tell everyone what else is out there?
I'd say it was about as good as I could hope for. There are quite a lot of people, maybe 7, playing white, blue, red control, which is a deck that doesn't have a lot of natural strengths against the hexproof strategy. They have Supreme Verdict, but I have the Totem Armor enchantments to combat that. And beyond that, they're just really slow. They're not going to be able to race, so it's going to be on them to try to answer what I'm doing. Beyond that, there are a number of different green-based creature decks, and I think what's going to be the toughest for me are the Channel Fireball players came with green-black, almost like Jund without red, but they have 4 Liliana of the Veil, tons of discard. That'll be, struggle if I play against them.
All right. One thing that you haven't really mentioned, and it's something that Modern is known for, is what I might call the combo decks. You kind of, your living ends and things like that. Have the field broadly not gone down a combo route at all?
Right, very few combo decks, and part of that in this tournament is that while Modern is only 1/4 of the Swiss rounds, it's the top 4, and top 4 is best 3 out of 5. So you put yourself in a tough position if you choose a deck that's going to become worse after sideboarding rather than becoming better after sideboarding, because you're just going to be very unlikely to overcome a tough matchup if you have to play 5 games in the top 4.
And are combo decks naturally getting worse after sideboarding? Is that like inherent to what
that
they
would
are?
be a fair generalization, right? Because their non-interactivity and speed is very good in game 1, but after the hate cards come in after sideboard, they're a lot more vulnerable.
Okay, this man has got a lot on his plate, because not only will he be hoping to come back to be in the top 4 of Worlds on Sunday, he's going to represent you all at the Community Cup. A great ambassador for the game, terrific guy, and we wish him all the very best. Reed Duke, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Rich.
Meanwhile, I can tell you that Twitter has been going nuts here at the World Championship over the last 24 hours. Keep them coming. And what we thought we'd do, we have Garth Avery back in the office in Seattle, and while we were sleeping overnight, we sent him onto the wilds of the internet to pull together all the best tweets from the last 24 hours here at #MTGChamp. So why don't we take a look at what people are saying on the Twitterverse. So there we are, some of the best tweets from the last 24 hours. Do you want to get into that?
Did you see your tweet in there?
Oh, the one where I congratulated myself on my interview. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, it's always good. Good to have friends. Thanks. Welcome to the desk. Now, we want to know from you, using the hashtag MTGChamp, Where are you watching us? Are you in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning? Are you in Alaska somewhere, where Shahar Shenhar was once upon a time when the birth of Commander days? Are you in Belgium rooting for Moraine Leiber and Vincent Lenoir? Are you around Europe? Are you just down the road in Amsterdam saying, yeah, just hope my guys can do it over the weekend? Are you across America? Are you watching us even on delay? We want to hear you and find out where you're from, where you're listening, pizza, parties, local game store. Let us know. Hashtag MTGChamp. And who knows, maybe we'll see a feature like that again in the coming days as we pull together the best from the Twitterverse.
We certainly have enough time.
Indeed. So it is welcome to the desk to Brian David Marshall and BDM. I know that you've been out and about just sort of picking up the kind of little eddies and flows of the event that when we're in the booth or here at the news desk talking to people, we can't really pick up. So what do you got for us?
Well, you know, right now the players have all been handed a sheaf of papers that contain all 16 of the modern decks, the decks that everybody's playing.
Right.
And they get a chance to look at the decks, talk about, you know, see what they're doing. The players have broken off into their little cadres of players and are trying to figure out who they're going to get paired against, what the matchups are like, and how they're going to stop Reed Duke. Because they're not sure they can.
Really?
Yeah. Reed is playing, you know, the Boggle deck. He's playing green-white hexproof, whatever you want to call it, right? He's playing this deck that, certainly for the blue-white-red players, they're like, how the bleep do we bleep and bleep this? You know, they're like, they're not sure that they can beat it. And a couple of the players said, well, you know, if it breaks the way I think it's going to break, Reed Duke's going to win this tournament. Wow. Because remember, the top 4 is modern.
Yeah.
So.
And best 3 out of 5,
and
as
best
he
3
was saying.
out of 5, yes.
And he was saying just before you came on that he feels that's why there's a distinct absence of combo within the field, because combo is a huge part of it. It's part of its huge appeal to many, the fact that there are so many combo decks that you can choose from, and also that you can get to interact with and try and play against. And here, very little, and he said, well, your best 3 out of 5. On Sunday, if you're an underdog, once people are sideboarded, your combo becomes much less interesting.
Right, and keep in mind that I was hearing a lot of this from the players who are playing blue, white, red. The Jund players were just sort of sitting quietly with their Lilianas.
Yeah, Reed may have mentioned something about lots of Lilianas in his future, which were going to make things tough. And
a card he popularized, by the way, when you think back to the Magic Online Championship when he won it.
So you're basically saying it's his own fault?
I'm saying he did this to himself.
Right, okay. I bet Florian Pills will be delighted to see if there are lots of Lilianas in Reed Duke's future. The thing is, it's so tight when you look at Reed at 5-0 and then falls back to 5-1. At 6-0, he would have been very, very close to the finish line. Once again, he wins 2 overnight, 6-1, 7-1. Comes back just to the pack. I mean, he's still out in front with 2 others, but at 7-2, again, there is now work to do. And if there are lots of Lilianas in his future, tough times.
But again, also starting out 5-0, if he should go 1-2 in modern, if someone at 8-4 is going to make the top 4, it's probably going to be him.
This message timed at 17:16 local time here in Amsterdam. For the first time this week, you will hear the words uttered at the news desk, seeding matters, which basically relates to the pool standings of the Team World Cup, because basically if you have the same record as someone else, but you were the highest seed coming in, that's really good news for you. That's kind of where we are with this.
So you're planting the seeds of seeding matters?
Oh, hush now. So Reed Duke is, if you like, the top seed, because he's won so many matches early in the tournament, win early, win often. That's the way to get a good tiebreak. So, as you say, 1 win probably separates him.
Right. So if he gets 1 win, he's got an excellent shot. If he gets 2 wins, he's pretty much locked for top 4.
Okay, why don't we take a look at the scoreboard and work out some of the possibilities from what we're looking at. Now, some of this is about hypothesis. We extrapolate what we've got. There you see, on the right of your screen, you've got Reed Duke 7-2, you've got Shahar Shenhar 7-2, you have Ben Stark 7-2. We know already, we don't have the pairings for this round, although the round is not far away now. We know that 2 of them will face each other. and we know that the third one will get paired down against one of the 6 and 3s. So that could be Josh Utter-Leyton, that could be Brian Kibler.
And Shahar Shenhar and Ben Stark, I believe, are both playing blue-white-red.
Okay, so that's not good for either. That's pretty good for Reed.
Correct. It's not great for them.
Yeah, it's the Channel Fireball guys in general that Reed says he's scared of with all the Lilianas. So we see what happens there. But a huge story, and I talked. We had Josh Utter-Leyton in the booth to talk with Marshall earlier on, and then I had a little word with Luis about this. Josh Utter-Leyton is the big winner today so far. 3-3 overnight, 6-3 coming out with mono blue, mind you. Mono blue, I beg your pardon.
Well, you know, people keep saying that blue is the best color in M14 draft.
Yeah,
so if you pair blue with another color, you're only making blue worse.
Oh, will you stop?
So if you do all blue, it's going to be the best.
People are listening to this. They're going to believe you. It's like, where's all the blue gone? It's like, everywhere's just a desert. There are no blue cards anywhere on Magic Online. All right. Anyone would think you were a blue player. Yeah. Where's mine gone? Maybe that's mine. Anyway, Josh Utter-Leyton.
I control magicked it.
Very good. Well, I shall return it to my hand. So, 3-3, 6-3 for Josh.
Excellent.
Fantastic. But now he really does have no losses to give, because even if he gets to 8-3,
right, it
is very likely that at least 2 of the 7-2s, the sails will have set on them, and they will be up and away. Someone will be 9-2. They'll be the 8 in that range. So probably at 8-3, Josh will have to play and win to get to 9-3 if he's going to make it in, because tie breaks might see him on the outside. Who knows? He may get in at 8-4. Right. But you would have, I think he feels, yep, today was a 6-0 day, not a 5-1 day. Right. And he's halfway there, which is very, very exciting. Let's take a look at the scoreboard one more time, because now, through the magic of technology, we can give it to you in priority order. So, we have 7 players with a winning record. Those are the 7 players who can get to the 8 wins that might see them in action. From the bottom up, Craig White Weenie Wesco, your Pro Tour Dragon's Maze title. Yuuya Watanabe still alive, just clinging on, needing 3 straight wins and maybe some prayer as well. The 2 6-3s are Josh Utter-Leyton and Brian Kibler, and when I look back to think of Josh Utter-Leyton way down the leaderboard on the bottom right, sort of 2/3 of the way through yesterday, that is just tremendous. Brian Kibler 6-3. Will he move up or down or finish where he is right now? Technically just in the top 4, because those are with tie breaks. And then you have Stark 3rd, Shenhar 2nd, Duke 3rd. So I won't ask you to predict the top 4, I will just ask you this. Do you think the top 4 as it stands will be the top 4? Duke, Shenhar, Stark, Kibler. Or will there be a shift in the next 3 hours?
I like Yuuya Watanabe to make a strong push here and knock one of the players off their pedestal.
Okay. Yuuya Watanabe, a reminder, is the defending champion in this little affair that we call the World Championship, and twice Player of the Year. He will not give this up easily. When you look at who he's got to get past to get there, you know, that's the reigning Player of the Year, Josh Utter-Leyton, the Hall of Famer 2-time Pro Tour champion Brian Kibler, the Hall of Famer Pro Tour champion Ben Stark.
Multiple Pro Tour champions.
Yeah.
Multiple Magic Online champion, Player of the Year. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a tough field.
Remember that Duke and Shenhar, if either of them go 0-3, well, then they're pretty much done. Right. They could absolutely finish in 7th or 8th place in this event right now. So no one is safe. Do you like Modern?
I do like Modern.
Why?
Because I get to play turn 2 Primeval Titans with my Amulet of Vigor.
Oh my God! I was about to ask you to, like, you know, tell people at home why it's so good.
Well, I mean, but that is why it's so good. The reason it's so good is that you can have your pet deck. You can have the deck that you really enjoy playing and that you know well. You know, Li Shitian is playing Scape Chef, which is a deck that he performed exceptionally well with at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. He's like, well, Stanislav Cifka can't beat me with eggs at this tournament, because
that deck's no longer very good.
Indeed.
So I think that this is the right Modern deck here. You know what I mean? It's you get to sort of nurture a deck along through the ebbs and flows of new card releases. That's one of the things I really like about Modern, is that you can keep a deck and you can sort of tweak it along.
Yeah, I love the fact I'm a big combo fan. I like, in a sense.
But you don't like turn 2 Primeval Titan?
Yeah, I know, but like, really, don't you want to tell the boys and girls all about it? These are people who go plains, pass, island, pass, forest, Windrake. Right? In M14 limited type thing.
Sure.
Right? So maybe the turn 2 Primeval Titan's a little scary. Modern's great, turn 2 Primeval Titan. That is where we are heading, which does mean some haymaker magic for sure. And we will be basically bringing you the story of who makes it to the top 4. We don't really care whether it's a mirror match. We don't really care whether they're going to sit there with 12 land on either side of the board waiting for someone to blink, because it's in the blink that someone makes it to the top 4 and maybe becomes a world champion.
If Reed Duke's opponent has 12 lands in play, he's in trouble. I'm just going to go on the record.
Okay, you're going to come right. Yeah, tap my 12 for a Glade Cover Scout, not burn for 11. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So we are closing in on the story of Modern. 3 rounds to go. We've had 9. We've seen Modern Masters draft. We've seen Standard. We've seen M14 draft. Now we're back to Constructed. In the old days, it would have been quite easy, because you could have said, oh yeah, well, this is the Constructed specialist. This is the one who knows his way around 60 cards. When did that change from a historical perspective?
I mean, when the Pro Tour moved to the split format Pro Tours, a couple of years back, you really saw that the people who are limited specialists or constructed specialists, started to fade. Like, people had to pick up their game in one area or the other. I was talking a little bit with Shahar Shenhar's dad yesterday, and it's always interesting when you see, the players' parents who've, picked up a lot of the lingo in the game, and he's like, I think it's really good that my son is excellent at both constructed and limited. It's, he does well in both formats, so, that's been really good for him on the Pro Tour. And it's like, yeah, an ability to be good at Magic, and not necessarily just, limit your practice and your preparation to one or the other is rewarded right now in the Pro Tour.
It's interesting that in terms of the Swiss at this event, they get a full 50% out of limited, which is part of the reason that Ben Stark is, right at the top of the standings. And let's not be coy. This is a man who's won with a constructed deck Core Blade in 2011. We're not suggesting...
and top forward with a constructed deck just last season. I mean, what's interesting about the sort of limited specialist versus constructed specialist idea is you find someone like Ben Stark, and he is on Team Channel Fireball, and he is the limited specialist. He's like, okay, my job is going to be go and draft this format 100 times. Learn everything I can about it. Go, hey, by the way, Scroll Thief is really good in M14, in case you didn't realize it. You might think it's bad because it was bad in previous sets, but because of this card and this card and this card, Scroll Thief's actually, a premium card, and we can get it cheap. So let's all know that, and let's all do that. And then he's like, okay, and tell me what I should be playing in Constructed and how I should do that, and what are my strategies, and how do I sideboard, and how does this matchup work for me? Paulo or Luis or Josh Utter-Leyton.
Well, you've said some great names in Magic there. Plenty of them are about to do battle. It's time for the talking to stop and the Magic to start once again. 3 rounds to go here at the World Championship 2013. Let's head down to the booth for Modern.